Day after reaction to President Obama's Cairo speech, remarkably positive in our fourth story in the countdown, with the notable exception of a certain Republican senator from Oklahoma who was actually accused the president of being un-American. Senator James Inhofe, Republican of Oklahoma, told a local newspaper that the president's speech was, quote unquote, un-American because he referred to the war in Iraq as a war of choice. The senator added, quote, "I just don't know whose side he's on." The fact that the war in Iraq was indeed a war of choice is obviously not a factor in Senator Inhofe's analysis, nor did he take into account President Obama's principled defense of legitimate American interests. And the senator complained that the president had suggested that torture occurred at Gitmo, quote, "There has never been a documented case of torture at Guantanamo." Senator Inhofe must be ignoring both the FBI report and the Red Cross report that clearly documented such torture. Meantime, President Obama's speech continues to draw a markedly warm reaction from the various audiences he was trying to reach. The 55-minute address electrified many Muslims in the Arab Middle East. Even Saudi Islamists expressed their satisfaction. "It is a beautiful speech in general," said Moshe Alawaji, an activist. And even the Wall Street Journal reports Muslims in the Middle East and beyond praised Obama for the tone of his speech Thursday. Al Jazeera, the Arab world's leading satellite channel, celebrated the speech as an attempt at forging a new relationship between Washington and the Muslim world. Let's bring in CQ Politics columnist and MSNBC political analyst Craig Crawford. Craig, great to see you.
Hi, David. You know, as the senator defines it, there really aren't many Americans left, I guess, since most people agree with Obama.
Well, once Senator Inhofe decided he was going to criticize the president before the president returned from the trip abroad, this is what he went with, pretending that torture did not occur at Gitmo and calling Obama un-American?
Well, you know, Senator Inhofe is a very proud, contrarian conservative who loves to hurl this stuff out there. He keeps a framed certificate in his office from an interest group that once proclaimed him the most conservative senator in America. And so he's proud of this stuff. And, you know, he loves to shoot from the hip. I'm surprised he doesn't have a holster permanently surgically attached to his hip.
Is there something else going on here, though? I mean, a knee-jerk reaction that when President Obama says anything to bridge the divide with other nations, some critics take that as an affront to America.
Yeah, and I often wonder, you know, when the out-of-power party, there is a tendency for the out-of-power party in all these cycles, as a result of the partisan gridlock we live with, that they seem to want the world to fall apart so they can blame it on the party in power. And you got to wonder at what point is the nation's interest paramount, when it certainly would be in the nation's interest to see some peace in this region and for Obama to make progress. But if they're just going to undermine it at every turn for political gain, who's the American?
Otherwise than mostly Inhofe, Republican reaction has been minimal. But when the president gets home, will the GOP try to get out their talking point about the president's Cairo speech, or do they realize that attacking a well-regarded moment like that will only isolate them further?
Well, they're trying to do something that I don't think is going to work. They've tried it before, tried it back in the campaign. They're trying to drive a wedge between the president and the Jewish community in this country. But they're making two false assumptions, I think. One, that the Jewish community would react as a whole as negatively as they expect to some of the things Obama said in that speech, because I find a lot of Jewish, if not most Jewish voters, want peace in that region and recognize some of these concessions have to be made. And the other is, it hasn't worked in the past. They tried to drive this wedge between Obama and the Jewish community in the last campaign. He got 80% of the vote.
Well, the other thing is most members of a majority of the American Jewish community actually supports the president when he says that the settlements need to stop, but that's another issue. Another thread running through this, many Republicans just do not want any kind of acknowledgement that our country committed torture. How long can they keep holding on to this widely disproven delusion?
Well, as long as they redefine it as not being torture, as long as they insist on defining torture in ways that is different from what the FBI and the Red Cross and most everyone else defines it, they can think that forever. You know, David, it reminds me of a friend of mine whose father, once taught him to bait the hook with these little shiners, these little fish that made him squeamish to stick the hook in there, and his father told him, "Oh, they like it. they like it. And from then on, he just kept baiting those hooks, thinking these fish really liked it. And so as long as you can convince yourself of a different definition, you can believe anything.
Craig Crawford of Congressional Quarterly and MSNBC. Craig, thanks as always.
You bet.
It is true.